Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we continue our adventure into this wonderful outdoor lifestyle during the month of October, which in my opinion is the absolute best month of the year. And I am so glad to have you along with us for this 3-hour journey on radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Once again, you have me at a little bit of a disadvantage because I'm doing some time shifting. We have to do this every so often when I'm blessed to be able to make some hunting or fishing adventures that take me out of town for a few days. This time, as you are hearing this show, I'm actually just getting back from a week of bow hunting in Ohio for whitetails with Bill Pyles of Ohio Bow Hunting Outfitters. Used to hunt with Bill all the time when I had a TV show. Every year, multiple times a year sometimes, when I had the TV show. And Bill informed me I haven't been down there now for 14 years. It's hard to believe that's been the case. But what happened was I was doing a Wednesday night live on my social streams months ago, and Bill just happened to pop in. And we got shooting the breeze online, and I said, hey, Bill, wouldn't it be cool if a bunch of the friends of the Outdoor Magazine radio show got together and came down and hunted with you? And right then we made the decision. He said, let's do it. So we set it up where there's about a dozen of us. And again, all of these people have come together because of this radio show and the social media streams and such. So we're heading down to Ohio, and we're going to hunt with Bill. Obviously, as I'm sitting here in the studio, I haven't left yet. But again, as you are listening to this show, I will just be getting back. So, again, you have me at a disadvantage, meaning if from the time I'm recording this show until you hear this show, something big breaks in the outdoor news, and I'm not talking about it, it's not because I'm ignoring it, it's because it hasn't happened yet. Now, what could this something big mean? What could it be? I don't know. Say, for example, the powers that be in Lansing and Michigan came up with the intestinal fortitude to actually do a wolf hunt. That would be something that would be big news. The people in Wisconsin have done it again. They're going to have their second wolf hunt in 2 years. Despite all the criticism, despite the hassle, the legal threats, they have the guts to have a wolf hunt. And I'm not one of those guys who say we should kill them all. I love the fact that we have some top-tier predators in our state, but I think to any thinking person, it's obvious that in some parts of the UP, our wolf population needs to be controlled, regulated. And how do you do that? You do that with a hunt. But here in Michigan, my sense is, and I'm not clairvoyant, and I don't have an I don't have a great inside track, but I have had some conversations that make me think that the reason we are hesitant and reluctant to have a wolf hunt is the powers that be just don't want to deal with the hassle. And again, with the legal challenges. I think they think they've got their hands full with other things, and they don't want one more thing on the plate. So, if out of the blue we get a Michigan wolf hunt or something crazy big like that, or if there's an agreement with the consent decree negotiations out of the blue, and I'm not talking about it, it's because I don't know about it yet. Now, as you are hearing this show, it's a big week coming up in the outdoors in Michigan. because Wednesday the 20th is the opening day of the Michigan pheasant season. Now, I admit it's not as big a day as it used to be. Way back in the old days, the opening day of Michigan's pheasant season rivaled the opening day of gun season. I mean, kids took off school. Some of the farms, some of the rural schools closed down that day because everybody was pheasant hunting. I missed the real heydays of pheasant hunting in Michigan, but I was there right at the tail end of it. I saw, growing up on the west side of the state, northern Kent County, I saw enough of what good pheasant hunting can look like that it actually, in many ways, helped form my interest, my love, my passion in the outdoors. I grew up pheasant hunting. That's what I started on. Pheasant and, of course, then rabbits and squirrels. But pheasant, that was the deal. Of course, I was lucky to live out in the country, out in a farm, and my granddad had a farm, then my dad had a farm, and back then you could wander the farms and the fields and the woodlots, and everybody knew everybody, and you didn't have to worry about trespassing, and there were a lot of birds, and it was a different world. I get that. But it was a good world. We had English setters. The first one I remember was named Lady. She was a black and white English setter, and she was quite a lady. And she was a good bird dog. And then when she moved on, we had her son, Tony. And Tony became the dog that I hunted over for the most part. I used to hunt over Tony at first with my dad, who taught me how to pheasant hunt. And it was him, usually just him and me, and I was pretty young. And he was teaching me how to hunt. He was teaching me how to hunt behind a dog. He was teaching me gun safety. He was teaching me pheasant hunting. And I remember that. And then after a couple of years, and I'm not, the statute of limitations has gone by so now, so I can say this. I'm not sure I was legally old enough to go out there and hunt by myself at that point. However, my dad had deemed that I was responsible enough to do it. And isn't that what it should be anyway? My dad knew that I was ready for it. And my dad knew that Tony, the English setter, would continue to teach me. So Tony and I would wander off, shotgun in hand, and it was a single shot 20 gauge Ithaca, if I remember right. In fact, I think I've still got it somewhere in the gun safe. And there were enough birds at the time where I could make a lot of mistakes and get away with it. And still occasionally come home with a bird or two. But almost always, seabirds get a shot at birds or whatever. I remember hunting standing corn a lot. And for some reason, I remember, memories, recollection, how accurate are they? I don't know. But I remember a lot of times we'd find birds in cornfields and they would sit. They wouldn't fly, they'd sit. And so then my dilemma as a kid was, okay, do I take this easy shot of this bird sitting on the ground? Morals, ethics, whatever, you do what you want. I don't think it's illegal to shoot a bird on the ground. However, I think most hunters would say they would prefer to kick the bird in the air and shoot it there, right? So, but remember, I'm a kid, right? But even back then, I'm like, well, I don't want to shoot that bird while it's on the ground. Because back then, the pheasants held tight. They weren't runners like they are today. And so Tony and I would inch up on the bird, ease up on the bird, kick it up in the air, and then more times than not, once that bird got some air underneath its wings and cackled, and I got a single shot 20 gauge, I usually couldn't hit the bird. But you know what? There were enough of them around that we could just wander down a couple hundred more yards or 100 more yards and find another one. But I still, to this day, and I haven't pheasant hunted in years, I remember the cackle of that rooster pheasant taking off. And that's always how we knew back then, for the most part. I mean, 99% of the birds back then would sit tight. Well, 90% of the birds would sit tight. They wouldn't run. They wouldn't flush before you got there. You had to flush them. And once you heard the cackle, you knew it was a rooster. Now, Tom Lounsbury, who has been hunting all along out in Michigan's thumb and never slowed down pheasant hunting, tells me that's not the case these days. He said they're a kind of completely different bird. They're ringnecks, yes. But he says they're runners. They will not hold. And he says they will not cackle. He said that has been worked out of their biological system. All the birds that used to cackle and then got shot, well, they've all been shot off. So the birds now that fly don't cackle, and I would really, really miss that. Speaking of pheasants, remember the Sichuan program? An attempt to bolster Michigan's pheasant population by introducing a bird that was going to live more in turkey habitat. That never did take off, did it? But at least they tried. Let's see. I want to let you know Wednesday night. Oh, same day of Pheasant Opener. We will be live, doing a Wednesday night live at the Rapid River Showroom in Rapid River in the UP. We're going to give away a couple of Rapid River knives. Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand will be there as well. I would encourage you, listen, if you're looking for a road trip or if you're in that part of the UP, come in and see it. The Rapid River Showroom in Rapid River. We'll go live at 7 o'clock. Chris Durson is going to leave the showroom open a couple of extra hours. You're welcome to come in and join us, and I would love to have you join us. You can enter to win one of those knives online. Find the post about the Wednesday Night Live, like the Rapid River Facebook page, like the Michigan Brand Facebook page, make a comment, and you will be registered to win. Speaking of pheasants, which is kind of on my mind right now, we'll take a break. When we come back, Al Beecham, just a private citizen who made a very, very generous to the Michigan Pheasant Hunting Initiative. He is hooked on pheasants. We'll talk about that. And then Jason Wolverton of the Forward Corporation and his campaign for Real Men Wear Pink. Coming up in hour number 1 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK, that's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Tawas on 2 stations, WIOS 1480 AM and 106.9 FM. And you can hear us on the other side of the state in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Versaskins, a great Michigan-based, family-owned company, and you know I love that. Versaskins, just change your skin for the season you're in. Versaskins has come up with a system where you buy one base set of clothing, very warm, very well-made, weatherproof, and then you zip in and snap in an outer skin, a cover, to change what you're doing. You take the basic camouflage suit, and if you're going to be firearm hunting, you put orange over the top. If you're going to be predator hunting, you put snow camo over the top. It's very, very cool. Saves you some money, too. Check them out online at Versaskins.com. That's Versaskins.com. While you are online, I would encourage you to check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then head on over to MPHI. Is it .com or .info? I'll check this out. .info. MPHI.info. The Michigan Pheasant Hunting Initiative .info. Now, I was just talking about pheasant hunting in the first segment. I grew up pheasant hunting. It is such a large part of my background and my family history and tradition. It is how we got started hunting as a family. Unfortunately, over the years, I've gotten away from it. I have no excuse. I think it's a mistake, but I have. That's why I am so glad to hear that there are people like Al Beecham still out there who are not only pheasant hunters, not only hardcore addicted pheasant hunters, but are people who are willing to step up and help out the cause. And Al is with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Al, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Hey, listen, a real pleasure. Tell me a little bit about you. What's your history as a Michigan pheasant hunter?
Well, a lifelong Michigander, and I'm 43 years old, and some of my earliest childhood memories are watching my dad's bird dog, English pointer Mickey, from a backpack that my mom made. And he would take out, they had a 10-acre parcel, and Deerfield Township, which is northern Livingston, right on the border of Genesee. And we would go up there out back, and he would chase birds, and he would shoot birds, wild birds on our property. And that's a big reason why he moved from Plymouth to experience that. So some of my earliest memories are related to pheasants and bird dogs in Michigan.
Well, you weren't around as I was hearing this, on the phone line with us in the first segment, but it sounds very similar to what I did. I grew up hunting with a dog named Tony, an English setter. I wasn't out there as early as being in a backpack, but much the same thing. And there are tens of thousands, I don't know how many thousands, people in Michigan who grew up and still have that same memory today.
I'm told, I never saw it, but I'm told that in the thumb, October 20th was as big as November 15th.
Yeah.
And the schools would be empty. And this isn't 100 years ago. We're going back to the 60s. So things have changed radically. That's a large discussion as to why that is. It's a complicated discussion. There's, farming practices and lots of different things. But the fact of the matter is all the neighboring states here in the upper Midwest have pheasant programs, have huntable pheasant populations. And for reasons that really don't add up, Michigan does not offer the same resources to the hunters of the state that our neighboring states do. And I think that needs to change.
You talk about farming practices. Now, I realize this could be a long discussion. We'll keep it short. But you got, farmers are spraying to keep the weeds out of their fields. They're plowing right up to the ditch banks. And I don't blame these guys at all. They're trying to maximize their profits. But if that is a factor, Al, how do we get more birds out there if we don't have that habitat like we used to?
Well, and just to be brief, a lot of the notions of the most effective farming practices have been proven antiquated. And for example, modern practices show that there are unproductive areas near tree lines, which historically, at least the last few decades, farmers may have tilled all the way to the tree line. They're now being shown, from a mathematical or dollar and cent standpoint by certain biologists that the return that you're getting for the poor crop that's produced because of the shade or near the tree line isn't worth it. And your interests are better served having that be a transition zone. And so there are a lot of evolving farming practices that take into account certain falsehoods, for lack of a better term, on the business end of farming. So, I go out to South Dakota every year, and it's different there because there's a lack of trees. So when they're tilling all the way to a property edge, that can be productive. But for example, up here in Michigan, when you have pretty thick tree lines a lot of times between properties, that margin area is very unproductive. We've all seen it walking around edges, whether you're putting up a tree stand or whatever. So that's something that could change. But in the meantime, I do believe farming practices will evolve back, just like the way that we feed ourselves has evolved back to maybe a little more sensible approaches versus, pure science, if you will. But I believe that it needs help from other directions. It needs the state game agency to support it through planting birds like all our neighboring states do. All neighboring states have active bird raising and planting, even South Dakota, which is the world capital of pheasant hunting, actively raises and plants tons of birds every year. So that's what needs to change.
And I want to talk more about that concept in depth after the break. But during this conversation right now, Al, you talk about habitat. Obviously, habitat is important. What about predation? I hear this all the time. Listen, even if we had all the perfect habitat, we have so many predators now in Michigan, like, for example, coyotes that weren't around in the numbers that they are now 40, 50 years ago. How big of a factor is that?
That's low-hanging fruit, and that's good barstool argument. But at the end of the day, if you have habitat, there's going to be birds. Birds thrived at one time in this state, and habitat changed, and it's not just habitat. It's you touched on it. It's herbicides. It's farming practices as a whole. And do I think the coyotes have a negative influence? Sure, but do I think that's what's the driving factor here? Absolutely not.
I also go back a few years thinking about the Sichuan program, where they tried to introduce birds that would live in that marginal habitat, more in a turkey habitat, for example. That just never did, no pun intended, that never did fly, did it?
No. And, there's forces out there, I think, both inside the agency and outside, who are wary and resistant to the idea of stocking, because there's been a couple failed efforts to the put and take program in the 70s. I wasn't alive then. I was a kid, or barely. So I didn't have personal experience with that, but this is different. And, what Ken Dalton has come up with here is quite remarkable, because he was able to get a meager appropriation from the state to release a 2-year pilot program, which was a huge hit in its first year, 2019. And, to give you a frame of reference, the state of Pennsylvania puts out, I think, 200,000 birds a year. We're putting out 4,700 this year, and it took a private donation to secure about half of that. The numbers, when you look at them side by side, comparisons to other states, it's embarrassing. And Wisconsin built out, I think, as $1.5 million or $2 million facility in the last 10 years just to raise birds, their own facility. So, these aren't states, Great Plains states, right? These are neighboring states, Illinois. So that's what needs to change. The DNR does not seem excited about. They seem to just want to stay the course of the pheasant restoration program, which was a 10-year program to create habitat. I've hunted a lot of those properties. You can go the whole day and not put up a bird. So, at the end of the day, a lot of problems need to be solved with more than one tactic or approach, and this is a prime example. The approach of just, hey, if you build it, they will come. Let's take a couple select state game areas and really focus on the habitat. It just isn't going to move the needle enough to get to where we need to be to have huntable populations again, where there's, a lot of orange in the field in October, and families are able to make memories that you and I got to make.
Well, and you talk about, the habitat restoration, the folks at Pheasants Forever, God bless them. They've been working hard for many years. But honestly, when you look at the impact that their programs have had, and they have been positive, I feel like there's a lot more that could be done. You look at, I think all of us in life are guilty of doing things that don't make sense. And it happens from time to time to the best of us. We look at our state here. We have no problem stocking millions of fish. Salmon wouldn't be here if it wasn't for a massive effort. How about turkey? They wouldn't be here in the state again. So why not get behind pheasant? Why not? There are a lot of examples where you could point to abundant resources. I think one figure I heard is $7 million is going to research chronic waste in deer. But it took years worth of effort and lobbying and grassroots difficult work to get a $50,000 appropriation. Al, hang tight. Listen, hang tight, Al. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. We're talking with Al Beecham, who is a hardcore, avid, dedicated pheasant hunter. But he's also a man who has stepped up and made a very generous contribution to the Michigan Pheasant Hunting Initiative, mphi.info. After the break, I want to talk more about this program. That's something that Ken Dalton, we call him the Pheasant. He's been on the show here before, the Pheasant, a man who had a dream and was tenacious and stubborn and hardworking enough not to let others beat him down, and he made it happen. And now Al has stepped up, and he's making it happen as well. So we'll talk more about that. Then Jason Wolverton of the Forward Corporation will join me to wrap up the hour. Jason involved in another thing that I believe very strongly in, the Pure Men Wear Pink campaign. It's coming up in hour number 1 of Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK. That's 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. And north of the bridge in the Sioux on ESPN 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry for 75 years now. How impressive, how cool is that? Boning continues to innovate after 3/4 of a century, coming up with new products, new designs, new techniques, new equipment behind the scenes to make the products for you even more efficiently for target archers and bow hunters. Check them out online at boning.com, BOHNING.com. If you are a bow hunter, I bet while you are in the field this fall, you have something or several somethings from Boning as part of your setup. We're talking now, though, about pheasant hunting in Michigan. Wednesday the 20th is the opening day of pheasant season here in our great state. I grew up pheasant hunting, but it's something I've gotten away from over the years. And to be honest with you, I think that was a mistake. Al Beecham also grew up pheasant hunting, but he didn't get away from it. He's smarter than I am. He stayed with it. It is a passion for his. He is intimately and actively involved with the Michigan Pheasant Hunting Initiative, mphi.org, to the point where he got his checkbook out and he says, I believe in what you guys are doing, and I'm going to help you fund this. So, Al, we appreciate that, but I want to talk very, very briefly about Ken Dalton. He is a visionary. This guy he's a force of nature, isn't he?
Ken is the definition of American grassroots organization. Anybody who's met him, his tenacity is remarkable. The only reason you and I are on the phone talking is because of Ken Dalton. He has been a salmon swimming upstream. You know, we all know that visual of that image, and that is Ken Dalton. He has had forces against him, and he has just refused to quit. And what happened is I've been tracking him for many years now. I was up in the Thumb on a rabbit hunt in 2010 or 11, and I saw a little sign for Michigan Pheasant Restoration Program. And I did some research, and I looked into it, and I saw what the DNR had going, and I was intrigued, and I began clipping out articles. Every time I saw it, I get every Michigan major, outdoor publication. So whether it's Woods and Water, Outdoor News, MUCC, whatever. Well, probably going back 5, 6, maybe 7 years, then I started to read about this guy named Ken Dalton, and I watched what he was doing, and I was clipping out articles. Well, it reached a crescendo this summer when I read an article from him in Outdoor News. I believe it was maybe an article in May or June, and he was desperately pleading for somebody to step up because this 2-year pilot program, which he had worked so hard to get put together and had a meager, $50,000 allocation, I think that was the amount they were given, and it was going to fail because they just weren't going to have enough birds this year. And he asked for an angel investor to step up, or somebody, a donor. Otherwise, this was going to fail. And I had already been in touch with him at that point, and I literally picked up the phone and called him right when I read that, and I said, Ken, I got you.
Wow.
So that's how it went down, and I met with Lyle Jaworski. I am very grateful to these two men for the work they've done and continue to do, because they helped me accomplish something very important to me, which was honor the memory of my mother, who passed on May 20th of 2020, right in the peak of COVID lockdown. So we couldn't honor her memory, and I was not able to have a funeral for her, and it's been weighing heavily on me. And when I saw this from Ken, I knew it was a way for me to honor my mom because of my family story and history.
But God bless you for that, Al. What you guys want to do is you want to raise birds to release in the wild. Now, as you said earlier, people tend to want to compare this to the old put and take system, but it's different in many ways, isn't it?
Yeah. This is selected sites, and the DNR decides where they want to put them. And this year we're going to have 9 different state game areas where these 4,700 and 16 birds, I believe is the exact number, are going to be released. And the Michigan Game Breeders Association works in concert with the DNR to put these out. And I think there's going to be between 4 and 8 releases per website. There was, ironically, this morning, Mike, I read, maybe not ironically as maybe as the Lord would have it, but this morning I read an article in Outdoor News right before I left the house, dated July 30th, 2020. I opened up to it. It's from Bob Gwids, and it's labeled, Michigan Pheasant Hunting Initiative Details Not Adding Up. and I wanted to address this because in this article, Bob outlines that Lyle and Ken indicated that there was a donor who had stepped up anonymously to put up a $25,000 donation to secure the future of this program so it didn't fail. And the article further indicates that they were getting pushback from the DNR on this, and he's, essentially beside himself, saying how could they possibly do this? And he got some degree of confirmation that they did initially reject the donation. Well, I want to speak to this.
We are so out of time. Real quick, Al, I'm sorry.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I'd like everyone to know that this is a wonderful program. Go buy your pheasant stamp this year, your endorsement. It helps support a program, and if you do that, you're going to see birds in the field for years to come.
Very good, Al Beecham. I appreciate your time, appreciate your generosity, and everything you're doing for pheasant hunters in Michigan. Have a good season this fall, and I hope our paths will cross in the future. The website for the Michigan Pheasant Hunting Initiative, mphi.org. That's mphi.org. We'll take a break. Jason Wolverton coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. You can hear us across the great state of Michigan, including in Cairo on WKYO 1360 AM and also on WIDL 92.1 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. That's MUCC.org. MUCC.org. And by the way, remember, you can save 25% on your MUCC membership by using the promo code MIKE, all caps MIKE. How cool is that? Another thing I think is very cool is a friend of mine, Jason Wolverton of the Forward Corporation. I'm a big fan of the Forward Corporation. In fact, I've partnered with them here on the Outdoor Magazine radio show because I think that their convenience stores and such are just a wonderful resource for hunters and anglers, for people traveling north. But Jason's involved in a cause that I feel very, very strongly about. In fact, a couple of years ago, I was part of this Real Men Wear Pink campaign as well. My mom has fought breast cancer twice. I've had a sister-in-law that fought it. And I actually lost a niece way too young to breast cancer. So I think it's a wonderful cause. Real Men Wear Pink, and Jason Wolverton from the Forward Corporation obviously does as well. Welcome back, my friend. How are you?
I am fantastic, Mike. How about yourself?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's October. What more could a guy ask for?
Absolutely. It's hunting season, and it's Real Men Wear Pink season.
Tell me about this campaign, Jason.
Yeah, so Real Men Wear Pink is about getting men, particularly in the community, raising awareness and raising money about fighting breast cancer. With October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, it's just another good opportunity to partner with the American Cancer Society and raise money, which is going to fight cancer and find a cure for something that impacts way too many people. Hearing you say that you've had close family members who have fought it and close members who have lost their battle. There's so many people like that. We all know someone in our lives who's fought cancer, and so this is just a really good cause and a great opportunity to find a cure.
How do we do this, Jason? How do we help?
Yeah, so you can actually just go to Google is probably the easiest way, and if you search for Real Men Wear Pink of Mid-Michigan, you'll find a page that has all of the men participating. There's I think over 20 different ambassadors this year from across the Mid-Michigan community. And then you can select. It doesn't have to be me. It can be anybody you want to donate to their campaign. And all of our goal is to raise $2,500 a person for the cause.
I got an idea. and we haven't talked about this before, so I'm throwing this at you blind. What if we give away a fishing trip with me, Captain Mike Avery, on the Angler Quest, and you, Jason Wolverton? You've got to come with us. What if we do an online auction to give away a trip with the proceeds of that going to your part of this Real Men Wear Pink campaign?
Wow. I mean, like you said, this is the first time hearing about this, Mike. That is so generous. I don't know what to say other than absolutely. I think that would be fantastic. And if you're willing to do that, I'm willing to come aboard and provide what little expertise I have.
All you have to provide is your smiling personality, Jason. That's all we need from you.
Well, you know what? I'm happy to provide that. Mike, thank you so much. That's fantastic. I think that's great.
I didn't mean to spring that on you. Honestly, I hadn't even thought of it till right now, just about at the time the words came out of my mouth. But it worked very well for me a couple of years ago, so let's do it for you as well.
That sounds great. Count me in.
All right. So what we'll do then, because this all just came together right now, is we'll go back to our online auction people. We'll put this back together. And, Jason, once this is finalized, then you and I can start promoting it. And I'll let people know here on the radio show and online how they can bid on the fishing trip with the proceeds going to Real Men Wear Pink to fight breast cancer.
Thank you so much. That sounds wonderful.
Listen, real quick before I let you go, tell me briefly about Forward Corporation. You guys continue to be a force of nature for, 75 years or something like that now?
Oh, you're giving us a little bit too much credit on the young side. We're 96 years old. We look good for 96.
I was going to say, you were just a child when the company started.
Yeah, just and then some. But no, 96 years old, family-owned and operated company, just wonderful people. And like you said, our bread and butter is up north. It's hunters and anglers, and you can find a Forward convenience store up and down in 75, and so many other places in the community.
Website forwardconvenience.com, forwardconvenience.com. You can Google Real Men Wear Pink. You can find Jason's page to help raise funds and awareness to fight breast cancer. And I'm actually pretty excited about this fishing trip we're going to do as well. We will have more details on that very, very soon. Jason, always a pleasure. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mike. Take care.
All right, we'll take a break here for the top of the hour. When we come back, we'll check in with Richard P. Smith, noted outdoor writer, black bear and whitetail expert from the UP. I think he's just getting back from a week in the bear hunting from bear camp in the UP. I know some members of his party had success. I don't remember if Richard got one or not. And then Brian Frawley from the DNR talking about the option this year of reporting, and it's just an option this year, of reporting your whitetail harvest. I think next year this is going to become mandatory. And then in our third hour, we'll talk with Don Barnard, a retired DNR fisheries technician. He's heading out to South Dakota to do some pheasant hunting. And I also want to talk with him about fall musky fishing as well. And we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. And guess what kind of a recipe he has? It's a pheasant recipe, kind of staying with the theme this week. Lots more coming up. Stay with us.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Yes, indeed. This is the big guy, Mike Avery, as we work our way through the month of Rocktober, and glad to have you along with us as we continue our celebration, our journey into this outdoor lifestyle here into the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond here on the Outdoor Magazine radio show. On the Outdoor Magazine radio network, heard on radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And I do this every week, and maybe I'm doing it only for my own benefit. But I keep pushing the fact that this is a syndicated, statewide, 3-hour radio show. And maybe it doesn't matter to anybody else, but I hear people all the time say, "Hey, I was listening to your podcast." And I said, "Well, where did you hear it?" And they give me a radio station that they heard it on. Podcasting is great. Anybody can do a podcast. I have several of them and I love them. But there are very, very few radio shows and very, very few syndicated statewide radio shows. And I got to be honest, I'm kind of proud of that. And I do think the best way to listen to Outdoor Magazine Radio, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station. Because you get your local news, weather, sports, even your local ads. Maybe there's a sale you want to take advantage of. Plus, the radio stations get the content of the show before I upload the podcast. Isn't it nice to know, though, that if your local affiliate doesn't carry all 3 hours, or if you live some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal of the radio show, that you can find a podcast? Places you could look are on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can find us on the Facebook page, my Facebook page, Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, LinkedIn, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM, Deezer, and Odyssey. And I even put it on YouTube. I also do have podcasts that are strictly podcasts for Jay's Sporting Goods, Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Killer Food Plots, Polar Craft Boats, Shadow Hunter Blinds, and MUCC and Michigan Outdoors. All that content is out there. I was just telling Charlie in the studio, Google's a wonderful thing. All you got to do is Google and you can find these things. Regardless, though, of how you are listening, thank you. I do certainly appreciate it. None of this would be possible on my end if you weren't there on your end, listening to the show, listening to the podcast, joining us on social media, joining us, as many of you are, well, a few of you are, in Ohio, as you are hearing this show. We're doing some time shifting as we're recording, but as you are hearing this show, I am just getting back from a week of bow hunting in Ohio with Bill Pyles of Ohio Bow Hunting Outfitters. And when I get back from there, I'm going to fully turn my attention back to Michigan. I love Michigan. I love the hunting opportunities here. It's nice to venture out once in a while. It's nice to go to Ontario on a bear hunt or go to Ohio on a deer hunt. But I love this state of Michigan. There are so many different outdoor recreational opportunities, so many different hunting opportunities, fishing opportunities. And it's wonderful for a guy like me to be able to make my career talking about and covering and participating in such things. Richard P. Smith is another one of those guys. He is a respected, longtime outdoor writer, whitetail expert, and black bear expert from the UP. You've read his writings. I mean, he's all over the place, including right here on the end of the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Richard, welcome back. How are you?
I'm great, Mike. How are you?
Well, it's October, right? So October, everything has to be good.
Yes. And you're rightfully proud to do this program that you do on a weekly basis for 3 hours. Many of us out there enjoy having the opportunity to hear about outdoor news and outdoor happenings, and thank you for doing it.
Well, Richard, that's nice of you to say, but I got to tell you, I appreciate what you've done for so many years, looking at the outdoors from your perspective, which is, in my opinion, as an absolute expert, I've told you this many times, I have learned more about black bear and hunting from you than anybody. I follow your whitetail writings and your research and your thoughts and your insights, so thank you for what you do.
You're welcome.
And you have been a little busy lately. In fact, I think you just spent a week in bear camp?
Yeah, exactly. During the first week of the third season in the UP. And I had a interesting experience that I've never had before in Michigan. It was amazing. I'm still learning about bears myself.
Well, tell me what this was, because I feel like, at this point, you've seen everything there is with bears and bear hunting and bear interaction. So what was this?
Well, on opening day of September 25th of the third hunt, I didn't have a bait to hunt that I felt I could see in a big bear that I wanted to shoot. So I took one of the younger members of our camp, Seamus McGill, to a bait, set him up. It was a bait he hadn't been to, so somebody had to take him there. And I had been maintaining this bait. I took him there, set him up. There were 6 different bears that I knew of on this bait. The big ones were coming in after dark, but there were some average-sized to decent-sized bears coming in the daytime. Seamus didn't have as much time to hunt as I do, so I set him up, and I sat in the vehicle waiting to hear him shoot. I was confident he would get a bear, and I wanted to get some photos of the bear soon after it was killed, get some fresh photos. So sure enough, a little after 7 p.m., I heard Seamus shoot, and I got my camera, and I hustled down there, and Seamus was at the base of his ladder stand that he hunted from when I got there. And as I'm talking to him, I see a bear by the bait 20 yards away. And we're talking. The bear had to know we were there. And Seamus had dropped the bear right at the bait. He'd made a clean kill with a 308, dropped it instantly. So we went up to his bear, and this second bear that was still alive trotted off. It went away, and I figured, well, that's the last we're going to see of that bear. So I was photographing Seamus with his bear, where he killed it, and this bear comes back. The one that I had seen when I got to where Seamus was. That bear circled us for 15 minutes. Seamus had unloaded his rifle when I started photographing him. But when this bear started circling us, he put a shell back in the chamber. Not sure of what this bear had in mind, but it just wanted to get at the bait, and that's where we were.
Oh, my goodness.
So I chased this bear off 2 different times. One time it stood up on its hind legs next to a tree like it was going to climb, and I approached the bear to try and get it to climb the tree so I could photograph it in the tree, but it ran off instead. And I chased it off another time, but it kept coming back. I could have easily used Seamus's rifle to fill my tag with that bear. It was about 185 pounds, same as the one Seamus shot. But I knew there were bigger bears on the bait and decided not to. But it was a very interesting experience.
So, very much so. And so many questions I have to follow up on this. Obviously, I mean, the bear knew you guys as humans were there. This wasn't a surprise. He didn't mistake you for something else. He knew you were up on 2 legs. So why the lack of fear?
I'm not sure. What I've thought is this bear knows that there are bigger bears on this bait after dark at the night. So he wants to feed before the big bears are there. He's more afraid of those big bears than he is of us. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. Seamus drug his bear over to the tree stand about 20 yards from the bait, and the bear came to the bait and started eating. That's what it wanted. It wanted the food.
20 yards away, as you guys are sitting at the base of his stand, a bear comes into the bait?
Yeah, and it was closer to us when it was circling us a few times, too.
How big was the second bear?
Yes.
How big was that second bear?
Well, it's about 175 to 185 pounds.
Same size, okay.
Same size. It was another male also. The bear Seamus shot was a male, and this was another male.
All right. Now, listen, I'm a bear hunter. I look at this from a different perspective than many of the people listening. But I got to throw this out there because there are going to be some non-hunters, not anti-hunters, but some non-hunters listening to this that are going to say, well, what's the challenge in this? If you've got a bear coming in broad daylight and he'll come in 20 yards from you and eat while he knows people are there, why is it even a sport? Just address that if you would.
Well, this is a rare occasion. This is the first instance of this type that I've experienced in 50 years of bear hunting in Michigan. That's how rare it is. And as I said, there was at least 3 much larger bears coming to this bait. Also, that this smaller bear knew were there and probably had been chased by those bigger bears, and it was more afraid of those bigger bears than us. That's my explanation of this, but it is still rare, even with the other big bears in the picture, for this to happen.
Man, that sounds like a great bait. Richard, I want to talk more about that and other things, but first we've got to take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. We're talking with Richard P. Smith. You can learn more about him. Well, I was mentioning Google earlier. Google Richard P. Smith, and you will find his writings and his thoughts and his research all over online. But also go to his website, richardpsmith.com. That's richardpsmith.com, and you can learn a lot more there. Following my conversation with Richard, Brian Frawley from the DNR will join us, talking about this year's registration of your whitetail harvest. It's an option at this point. I suspect next year it will become a requirement. All that and more coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Sandusky on WMIC, AM and FM. That's 660 AM, 95.3 FM. You can hear us on the other side of the state of Muskegon on WKBZ, 1090 AM, and just up the road, just a little bit, in Manistee on WMLQ, 97.7 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by a business back on the other side of the state, east side of the state, on Saginaw Bay, Linwood Beach Marina. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. In fact, Linwood Beach was the first Angler Quest dealer in the country. Some great fishing right now going off on Saginaw Bay offshore from Linwood Beach. Walleye action is starting to pick up and will as the water temps drop. And as I'm sitting in the studio right now, looking out the window, there is no wind. And I'm thinking, man, if you weren't in a tree stand today, out chasing perch would be a good option too. And Linwood Beach is also a great jumping off point for waterfowl hunters as well. So they've got you covered. And if it's time to put the boat to bed for the winter, Linwood Beach can do that. In fact, they can even store it for you as well. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. While you're online, check out this website, richardpsmith.com. richardpsmith.com, the website of noted outdoor writer and wildlife and hunting expert Richard P. Smith. Richard, I got to ask you, man, you've been doing this a long time, longer than I have. How did you get into this world of outdoor communication?
Well, I started writing for the local newspaper, the Mining Journal in Marquette here, when I was in high school.
Wow.
And then gradually developed into a weekly outdoor column and contributing outdoor features as well. It was a gradual process.
And look where it's taken you.
Yeah.
How the interest, or why the interest in black bears and whitetail? How did you end up focusing? I realize you cover everything, but that seems to me to be your two areas of real expertise. Why those two species?
Well, when I started outdoor writing full time, there was very little interest in black bear hunting. In fact, bears were bonus animals on deer licenses back in those days, and very few people actually hunted bear. If they saw them when they were deer hunting, which many did, they shot them then. Mm-hmm. I started reading and learning as much as I could about black bear hunting, and then we gradually had a black bear season where it was important to know how to hunt black bears. And I believe I've been a pioneer in promoting bear hunting in Michigan through my learning about it and writing about it so others could learn as well.
Let me jump in. I agree with you completely. You have, in my opinion as well, been a pioneer in promoting black bear hunting in Michigan. Yes, so thank you for that. And you helped get me interested in it as well.
Good.
I want to go back to your third season. You were hunting in the third season. And you are the guy who turned me on to this whole option of hunting in the third season because you can get tags more often. But there is a problem with that, isn't there? In that, well, obviously it's later in the season. Maybe the bears are turning a little more nocturnal. Maybe they're even thinking about going to bed. How does that third season fit into the whole picture?
Well, the success is much lower during that third hunt. You've got other bear hunters there's been 2 bear hunts prior to that. Small game hunting opened on the 15th. All this disturbance makes bears more cautious and more nocturnal. And the day length is shortening as well by the 25th. So it's harder to shoot a bear during that third hunt than the first two for those reasons. But if you know where to go and are persistent, the chances are still excellent. There were 6 of us who hunted out of bear camp this year. 4 of those 6 shot bears.
Wow.
The other 2 could have shot bears. One of the guys that didn't fill a tag only had 2 days to hunt. It was Seamus's brother, Seth, only had 2 days to hunt. He saw a small bear that was legal on the first day of hunting, but he was hunting with his father, Kent, and he didn't want him to shoot a bear that small.
Yeah.
So he waited, and then I certainly could have shot the bear that was circling Seamus and I saw another one when I was hunting that I could have shot.
You said you knew you had at least 6 bears on that bait. How do you know that? Were you trail cameras? Is that how you were watching
Yes,
them?
trail cameras, looking at those and looking at the markings and sizes of the different bears.
The trail cameras have really changed the way we hunt, especially in a situation like where you've got animals coming to a bait.
Right. It lets you know what's there, but it doesn't guarantee success. Like, I never saw one of the bigger bears during legal shooting hours, so wasn't able to shoot one. Kent, Seamus' father, though, was waiting for a bigger bear that he had on camera, and he eventually got the 260-pound female, which was the biggest one taken of those 4.
Excellent, excellent. Well, it sounds like it was a good experience. Now time to turn your direction toward your beloved whitetail hunting.
Yes. Well, I may do some bear hunting yet.
How long does that last season go, Richard?
It goes until October 25th, I believe.
It does.
Or 26th, one of the two.
When do UP bears generally start to head to the dens?
Some of them start denning in late October, but most of them den in November. We have an excellent acorn crop again this year. With that food source available, they'll often feed as long as possible before entering dens. And the abundance of acorns is one reason why we didn't get more bigger bears. The bigger bears are more experienced. They avoid baits until after dark, and they're eating acorns during legal shooting hours. It reduces success.
Those same acorns that'll bring bears into an area will also attract whitetails, though, too, right?
That's correct.
Are you going to concentrate your whitetail hunting back in the Keweenaw again this year?
Yeah. I've got some stands in the Oaks where acorns are present, so I think those will be good locations.
What is there about that part of the Upe that makes you make the drive from your home in Marquette over to the Keweenaw? Why not just hunt closer to home?
There's fewer hunters. There's some big bucks in the country that I hunt. I've seen them, but I haven't killed one. But I've killed a number of 3.5-year-old bucks up there and a number of 2.5s. It's not difficult to get an older age class buck there, but the fact there's fewer hunters and I like the country contributes to my choice to go there.
You talk about a 3.5-year-old buck in the UP. Compare that to a 3.5-year-old downstate farmland buck, and they're considerably different.
Yeah, the antlers aren't as large on the 3.5-year-old bucks in the big woods country. Body-wise, they'll have decent-sized bodies, but the antlers won't be anywhere near. A 3.5-year-old buck in farm country could very well be a Boone and Crockett buck, 150 to 160, 170, whereas I've shot plenty of 3.5-year-olds that don't even score 100 in the UP.
Does that come down to nutrition?
Yes, it does. And the winters, which contributes to nutrition as well. Winters reduce nutrition of our UP deer during several months out of the year, whereas southern Michigan deer don't have that stress from cold and snow that our UP bucks do.
Switching gears here a little bit, you see Wisconsin's going to have a wolf hunt?
Yeah. And we should too, but we won't, unfortunately, because of politics.
You're clairvoyant. You're reading my mind. That's exactly where I wanted to go with that. What do you mean by that, Richard?
Well, our current governor and our attorney general are opposed to wolf hunting. In fact, our attorney general is trying to get wolves replaced on the endangered species list, where they do not belong. And those politicians, the governor calls the shots with the Department of Natural Resources. She appoints the director. She appoints the Natural Resources Commission. So she has control of that situation.
There just doesn't seem, obviously not the will to have a wolf hunt, not the desire to fight the fight that comes along with it, but just a whole different mindset over the folks. Yeah, Wisconsin dealt with some criticism. They had some problems, but they pulled off a very successful wolf hunt. I'm sure this year's will be as well.
Exactly. And the fact that hunters in Wisconsin were so successful is a reflection that there's far more wolves out there than are being estimated, and that's been shown to be the case in Michigan as well. We underestimate the number of wolves. In fact, the department admits they only survey 60% or 65% of the habitat in the UP, so they don't survey all of the UP. They can't have an accurate estimate. It's underestimating the number of wolves we have.
I had a guy in the show here a few weeks ago from the UP, Jim Hoy, and he was speaking for residents in his part of the UP, and he said, he said, you downstate people don't get this. We're not saying there's wolves behind every bush, but there are enough up here in certain parts of the state, in certain parts of the UP, where they are indeed a real concern.
Yes. And even with the DNR estimate, underestimating the population, that confirms we have enough wolves to have a regulated wolf hunt or trapping season to control their numbers. And that's all we're asking for is a regulated harvest to manage the animals. That's all we want. We're not trying to eliminate them. Nobody wants to eliminate. Well, some people do, but most people don't want to eliminate wolves. They just want to manage it.
Exactly. Most rational people don't want to kill them all. Yeah. If we do, I'm going to say when we do get a Michigan wolf hunt, regardless of how many years that takes or changes in administration or whatever, I really hope this time around we do open it up to the trappers and the dog hunters as well. I think that'll really change the harvest numbers.
Definitely, and that's been shown in Wisconsin and other states where they've had seasons. Trapping is far more effective at harvesting wolves than hunting. As you know, they're difficult to hunt. Success is very low with hunting.
Amazingly, I've never hunted a critter like a wolf. I've hunted bears, I've hunted whitetails. I've been on elk hunts, but I've never seen anything like a wolf. Yeah, they're tough to hunt. There's no doubt about that.
Exactly.
Richard, always a pleasure. Listen, good luck as you head back to the Bear Woods, and good luck on your whitetail season as well. We'll send people to your website, richardpsmith.com, richardpsmith.com, and always a pleasure.
And good luck to you this fall, too. If I can add, too, Mike, deer hunters for responsible UP deer management could still use donations for legal fees for challenging the Natural Resources Commission on deer hunting decisions for UP.
Thanks for bringing that up real quick. How do we donate? Where do we find that info?
There's a GoFundMe page. There's an article on my blog on my website.
Okay, very good. You can find that info at richardpsmith.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, Brian Frawley from the DNR talking about this option of reporting your whitetail harvest, which I think next year will become a mandate. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. You can hear us in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY. That's AM and FM, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Rapid River Knives. I've got a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now. I love these guys. Chris Durson does a great job. And just a reminder, Wednesday night, the 20th, we're doing a Wednesday night live from the Rapid River showroom in Rapid River in the UP. Chris Durson is keeping the showroom open late that night, so you can join us in person if you want. If you live in that part of the state, or if you want to make the drive up and see us, that would be wonderful. We're giving away a couple of knives, and you can enter to win online. Go to the Rapid River Facebook page. Go to the Michigan Brand Facebook page. like the post about the giveaway in the Wednesday Night Live, make a comment, like the Rapid River page, like the Michigan brand page, and you will be entered to win a Rapid River knife yourself. How cool is that? The website for Rapid River, rapidriverknifeworks.com, rapidriverknifeworks.com. I want to turn our attention now to Brian Frawley from the DNR. Brian, appreciate you being along with us. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Listen, I think we want to talk about this concept of reporting our whitetail harvest. This is something other states have done online for a while. Are we moving that direction, Brian?
Yes, we've been moving that direction for several years. It's been at least 10 years that we've been using online surveys to collect harvest surveys. These are part of the voluntary harvest surveys we do every year. But we've been moving more and more, and now we're to the stage where, yes, we're playing catch-up to many other states. About two-thirds of the other states already have online harvest reporting in place. Michigan has traditionally been a state where we've relied upon mail surveys that are sent out after the hunting season. These are sent out to a random sample of licensed buyers. They provide the answers to the number of deer they took. We then calculate a mean from our sample, and then we extrapolate that to the population. We've run into problems with that process, though, because over time, the response rate has been falling. 25 years ago, about 75% of the hunters would return a survey. This past year, we only had like 42% that returned a survey. And one of the problems with that is that the harvest estimates are very sensitive to the response rate, because we know from our studies as well as studies that have been done nationally, the lower the response rate, the less confidence we have in the estimates. Because what we see is that people who respond to the survey tend to be those who were successful.
Sure.
So when we extrapolate from the sample to the population, we tend to overestimate that. And that overestimation tends to get worse as the response rate falls off. So yes, we've been interested.
So is the online reporting, is that mandatory this year or optional still?
It's still optional. We're still testing. We signed a new contract with a new vendor to supply the online surveys. And so that vendor has now produced the product. We're testing it out, and hopefully we'll learn from that, we'll improve it, and ultimately adopt some kind of mandatory reporting in some fashion in a few years.
So how does it work for this year? I shoot a Michigan deer. What are you asking us to do?
You can go ahead and log on. You can log on the same way you would log on to buy a license or any of our products. And in there, in that application, there'll be an option for you to complete harvest reporting. Also, you can directly log on to the harvest reporting app. If you go to michigan.gov/DNR harvest report, DNR harvest report, all runs together as one word. Mm-hmm. And there you'll have to log in and provide your ID from your hunting license, as well as your date of birth. That'll log you into the system, and then it'll proceed to ask you some basic questions about the deer you harvested.
Michigan.gov/hunting report.
Yep, that's /DNR harvest report.
Harvest report. Thank you. Harvest report. HARVEST. Harvest report. So, all right. So there is a concern among some people when a state agency starts asking for more information how you're going to use this. Is it going to be used for anything other than deer harvest numbers?
It'll be used only for deer management. So anything related to deer management will be used, but it won't be shared beyond those purposes.
I actually look forward to this. To me, I hate getting mail these days. I just as soon answer through an email or go online. So I think, Brian, you're going to have a pretty good success with this right off the bat.
We hope so. Ultimately, the reason why we're doing this is to collect better data that will ultimately improve the management of deer in Michigan.
That's the goal, right?
Yep.
That's the goal. All right, Brian, listen, I appreciate your time. Again, the website, michigan.gov /DNR Harvest Report. You can go there this year and report your harvest online to help the biologists in Lansing or across the state get a better feel for how to manage our whitetail herd. Brian, appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
All right, Brian Frawley from the DNR. The website for the DNR overall, michigan.gov /DNR. But for this harvest, michigan.gov /DNR Harvest Report. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment, and following that in hour number 3, Don Barnard, retired DNR fisheries technician, who just happens to be heading to South Dakota on a whitetail hunt. But before that, he was chasing muskies here in Michigan. We'll talk about that and more. And we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner, who just happens to have a pheasant recipe this week. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show. Got to find my list here. I know the stations, but I don't know which ones I've crossed off so far. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX, and you can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. The Ask Avery segment is brought to us each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way this segment works, you know by now, is this is your chance to actually have a say in the programming of the show. You can send me a question directly, something you'd like me to answer, or if you want me to pass a question along to the DNR or somebody like that, we can do that as well. We've done it both ways. I think the best way to get your questions to me these days is just send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. You can hit me up on the social media messaging platforms as well. I do try to keep an eye on all of them. But maybe not as good an eye. There's just so many of them out there these days. So if you have a question, I think the best way, again, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. And that's what Jamie Ross did. He sent me an email. He says, Mike, you're always talking about Michigan and being a Michigan guy and how much you love our state. Yet, back in the summertime, you went to Ontario on a bear hunt. I hear you talking about going to Ohio on a deer hunt now. What gives? Are you a Michigan guy or not? Well, Jamie, I got to tell you, that's a good question. And I've heard that question before from others. I am a Michigan guy. I grew up in Michigan. I love this state. I've made my career here. Throughout the course of my career, back when I had a TV show, I did quite a bit of traveling just because there was so much content to fill, and it was so hard to say, go out here in Michigan and know you were going to get video of nice bucks or whatever, that I started to incorporate into the production schedule some out-of-state trips to help get more content. And that's the way I ended up in Africa and Alaska. I mean, I knew if I went to Africa, I knew I was going to be able to get 2 or 3 shows out of it. Well, if I went out into the Michigan whitetail woods and spent a week in the woods like I did in Africa, I wasn't going to get 3 shows out of it. I'd be lucky to get 1 show out of it. So I started to go to these different places as a matter of necessity. And they were always fun. I enjoyed every one of them. But it was always nice to get back. It was always nice to get back to Michigan, back to my home state of Michigan, and reconnect with what we have here. Now, regarding the Ontario hunt, this is something I've done for the last several years. If I could get a bear tag in Michigan, I would hunt in Michigan for bears every year. But you can't get a Michigan bear tag every year. So I started going out of state, now lately for the last dozen years, to Ontario, to White River, because I knew I could go up there and get a tag. So now it's become something I look forward to. Do I put in for a Michigan tag every year? You bet I do. And I think next year, 2022, I will have a Michigan tag again. Regarding the Ohio hunt, Bill Pyles and Ohio Bow Hunting Outfitters down in central Ohio is one of the guys I got to know and became friends with because of the TV show. Now, I haven't gone down there for the last 14 years. I'm surprised it's been that long. But once I got out of television, or once I started to get away from television, I didn't do these out-of-state whitetail hunts. But one night I was doing a Wednesday night live, which I do every Wednesday night on my social media streams, Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, and Bill joined us on the live stream. And he checked in, and we got Shooting the Breeze online there. And I said, Bill, wouldn't it be cool if some of our friends of the Outdoor Magazine show came down and hunted with you? And he's like, yes, absolutely. And it got steam and it gained momentum. And within 2 weeks, we had a dozen people. We filled up his camp, all with people who are friends of Outdoor Magazine Radio. So that's how that all came about. And I'm actually, in fact, as you are listening to this show right now, I am just getting back from a week of bow hunting in Ohio. So I don't know how that hunt's going to go. I know the weather is supposed to be pretty warm. I don't know. I mean, I'm not as hardcore of a deer hunter as I used to be. I'm going down there to see Bill and Joan and the family and spend some quality time with a lot of these folks that I talk with only online, and just get to meet people and just have fun. So I'm looking forward to that. Any deer harvested beyond that will be an absolute bonus. But so to your point, Jamie, I am a Michigan guy. I love this state. I'm borderline. Well, no, I'm an unabashed fanboy for Michigan. I love our state. Do I love everything about it? No. Do I love everything about the politics? No. Do I love everything about the DNR, the NRC, even MUCC, the governor's office? No. But our state in general, our recreational opportunities, our natural resources, no matter where I traveled in the world, including Africa and Alaska, I always looked forward to getting back home to Michigan. And these days, I am as excited to drive 20 minutes from my house to hunt whitetails here in Michigan on a piece of property that I really don't expect to see a big buck on. And no, I probably will not see a buck. I'm out there to shoot a doe. I am as excited about doing that as I am about going to Ohio with a prospect of seeing a big buck. So, Jamie, appreciate the question. And yes, I am a Michigan guy. And thank you to our friends at Security Credit Union for helping to make each week's Ask Avery segment possible. You can check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, hour number 3, talking with Don Barnard, retired DNR's fisheries technician, about pheasant hunting, about musky fishing, and more right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is Mike Avery, also known as the Big Guy, and so glad to have you along with us in this third hour of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network as we work our way through the month of Rocktober. Why do I call this month Rocktober? Because it's a rock and roll month in the outdoors here in the great state of Michigan. Think about the different seasons. Okay, bear season, deer season, small game season, fall turkey season, waterfowl season. And then with fishing, you've got tremendous pheasant season coming up here on the 20th. Almost forgot that one. And then fishing, you've got fall perch, fall walleye, steelhead in the rivers, sturgeon down in the southeast part of the state, walleye out in the big water, muskies, northerns, great fall fishing. I mean, it's the best time of the year. It's the month of Rocktober. Don Barnard is a guy I think who probably shares some of that love for the fall. Don he's a retired DNR fisheries technician, but beyond that, I give you that as his frame of reference because the guy, he's got chops. All right, he spent his entire career working in the outdoors, but he's also a hardcore hunter and a hardcore angler and an all-around good guy. In fact, he's such a good guy that as we are recording the show right now, he's on his way to South Dakota, and he pulled his truck over and sat in a good cell area so he could talk with me. How generous is that? Don, always a pleasure. How's your trip going, buddy?
Very good so far. We've had beautiful weather except for a few fog banks, but other than that, traveling's been nice and comfortable, and we're having a good way. We're actually on our way to North Dakota.
North Dakota.
Yep.
Okay, my mistake. What are you going out there for, Don?
Primarily for pheasants, but we get sharp-tailed grouse, Hungarian partridge, and we also do a little coyote hunting. So,
kind of a smorgasbord.
Right. We enjoy as much as we can while we're out there.
And you've been going out there, I think, for several years now, haven't you, Don?
Yeah, it's been at least a dozen or more years out here to North Dakota every year. We have, and such that it's almost as much hunting as it is visiting friends we've met.
I know that feeling. Yes, I know that feeling very well. So listen, we've got birds here in Michigan, we got coyotes here in Michigan, and I'm asking you this because the question came up to me earlier in the hour. It's like, Avery, you claim to be a Michigan man. Why do you go out of state? I'll ask you the same thing, Don. Don, you're a Michigan guy. Why go to South Dakota, or why do you go to North Dakota for your outdoor recreation?
Well, I guess it's hard to put a handle on it. I will say the pheasant hunting is better than what we have in Michigan. There are more pheasants. There are more coyotes, believe it or not, even though it's obvious in Michigan that the coyotes are on the rise. When you go to North Dakota, you wouldn't believe the number of coyotes.
I don't think we want any more coyotes than we've got here now, do we?
No, we don't. But we're pretty much at our peak in Michigan. But North Dakota's got one time from the ranch, I heard coyotes howling at all 4 points of the compass one night. So they have a lot of coyotes, but they have a lot of pheasants. They have They have more pheasant habitat than we do, and so they have more pheasants.
The thing, I've been to the Dakotas, both of them, several times, and the thing that sticks in my mind is the absolute vastness of the country. I mean, there were times in South Dakota where we literally were driving down the road for hours, and you would only occasionally see one farmhouse way back off the road. I mean, there's a lot of land out there and not a lot of people.
Right. I think where Michigan's population is, around 9 million, North Dakota's population is about 500,000, 500,000. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you have a lot more land, a lot more people. I mean, a lot less people, obviously, and a lot more land. And I don't know if that's part of the appeal. You know, I enjoy bass fishing and musky fishing, but I don't just stick to one spot. So as much as I love Michigan and all of that it has to offer, I can go to North Dakota and see more people and some cases more game, and I can enjoy it out there as well. But I still have my residence in Michigan.
See, it's exactly the same thing I was saying. Like the outdoors doesn't end at our state boundaries. We can love our state. We can love to hunt and fish in our state. But there's nothing wrong with jumping out to another state once in a while just to see what else is out there.
Right. The boundaries are man-made. In my career, the salmon didn't stay on the Michigan side. Okay.
It would have been a lot easier if they would have, wouldn't it?
It would have been so much easier if they would have, and also there's another benefit. Michigan, the Lake Michigan side of Michigan benefited tremendously by the amount of brown trout Wisconsin would put on their side of the lake. I mean, so there's pluses and minuses. We had fish that wandered over the Canadian side, unfortunately, where they were harvested by commercial fishermen. But we have benefited tremendously by Wisconsin's planting of brown trout in Lake Michigan. Mm-hmm. So that was a big part of it. Wisconsin actually at one point planted as many brown trout in Lake Michigan as we would plant inland statewide. So we definitely benefited from Wisconsin's generosity in terms of brown trout. So, they don't know there's a boundary. There's no fences in the Great Lakes. There's nothing to keep deer from going back and forth, or moose or wolves or anything like that. So. Yeah.
And so it's okay if we do it once in a while, too.
Right. It's okay if we do it once in a while, too. Yes.
Hey, Don, describe pheasant hunting in North Dakota. What's it like? How does it compare to bird hunting here in Michigan?
Well, it is a little bit of a different. You almost pick, there'll be, instead of, and we do walk corn rows and sunflower fields. They have tremendous, they're big into raising sunflower seeds. So we walk those, but we also hit pockets of cover, and as opposed to there'll be a little woodlot here, or there'll be a patch of cattails there. So we go from pocket to pocket to pocket. It is different. Obviously, it's much more rolling, hilly terrain than what we have in Michigan, and it is separate. I mean, the birds are the same, and the birds also get wise to you. When you hunt them too hard, pressure them too hard, they start running and leaving early. But it's still a great game bird. But it is different because we go from pocket to pocket, habitat to habitat when we hunt pheasants. A little bit more different than what we do in Michigan.
What about the number of birds? How many birds might you see in a day out there?
Well, that varies. The biggest factor in North Dakota, sometimes we'll see 20, 30, 40 birds a day. It varies. Like this year, they had a dry year in North Dakota, as opposed to our soaking all summer in Michigan. They've had a very dry year, and that's hard on insects, which in turn is hard on young of the year pheasants, which need insects as they're growing up. So their pheasant numbers are actually down a little bit this year, but we still expect to see birds. The highlight is where we hunt. We hunt the southwest corner of North Dakota, and they said that's still looking good. But there's a lot of factors. Will we see more pheasants out there than in Michigan? Yes, by far.
You taking a dog with you, Don?
Yes, I personally use Springer Spaniels. Most of my friends are using German Shorthairs, but everybody has a dog. And we do take dogs, which helps for a lot of reasons, not only to see birds, but to recover wounded birds. And it's just, and it's fun just to watch the dog.
Oh, it is. It is. I was talking in the earlier hours of the show about growing up over English setters watching and pheasant hunting, and it is. It's a magical experience, one that I have let slip away from me, and I feel bad about that. But it's a wonderful, magical experience.
Right. The dog work is always as important as just seeing, because otherwise, just walking blindly hoping you flush pheasants it keeps you on your toes, but it's nice to have a little warning. If like my springers are more active, they're a flusher as opposed to the pointers where they tell you that there's a bird here. Either way, you got a little bit of a warning. Not always, but you have a little bit of warning as opposed to preparation to the flush. So.
You know what? I got to follow up on this flusher versus pointer concept. And then, of course, we got to talk about fall musky fishing, too. Don, are you in a spot you can hang tight for a few minutes?
I'm fine right where I'm at.
I appreciate that. Don Barnard standing by on the side of the road in his truck on the way to North Dakota to go pheasant hunting. He brings up an interesting point. No pun intended. Pointers and flushing dogs. I do want to follow up on that. And, of course, talk about fall musky fishing. Don, in my mind, is an expert musky angler, but not down on Lake St. Clair. I'm sure Don can go to Lake St. Clair and catch fish, but he concentrates on the inland waters, primarily more in the northern part of the state. I want to talk about that because coming up here in the fall, as the water temp drops, musky fishing is going to become better and better. So we'll talk about that and more with Don Barnard. And then, of course, we'll wrap up this week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. And Dave promises me, in honor of the pheasant opener coming up, that he will have a wonderful pheasant recipe for us right here on Outdoor Magazine. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS Powerhouse Station. We call those blowtorch stations. It sends out a signal that'll scorch your hair if you're standing too close to the transmitter, and we love that. You can also hear us in Holland on another fine station, WHTC, 1450 AM and 99.7 FM. Let's continue on our list of wonderful stations. WILS in Lansing, 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Wilds Plumbing and Heating. Plumbing, heating, air conditioning, ductwork cleaning, sump pumps, furnace, heating season, prep. Man, you name it. If it has to do with keeping your house running soundly, to keep you comfortable and dry, the folks from Wilds can do it. In fact, their slogan is whatever it takes. I love working with people who say whatever it takes, we'll get it done. And they do. Check them out online at wildsplumbingandheating.com. That's wildsplumbingandheating.com. We're talking now with a friend of mine, Don Barnard. He's a retired DNR fisheries technician, spent many, many years in the DNR and working with fish all of his life. But he's an avid outdoorsman outside of work. In fact, he's on his way to North Dakota right now to do some pheasant hunting. And I also want to talk with him in a minute about fall musky fishing. But, Don, I got to follow up on a point you made before. A pointer versus a flushing dog. What is that all about? What's that mean?
Well, the assumption is that for a pointing dog, and a lot of guys will put a collar on there so they know the dog is stationary, and that the pointing dog will hold the birds in place. And the flusher, well, as my friend says, sometimes you need a pair of tennis shoes to keep up because they're just going to go and flush the bird. But the pheasants, and specifically wild pheasants, don't hold very good if they feel threatened. So even my friends' pointing dogs, a lot of times, just because if the pheasants they feel like they're threatened, they'll just take off. They'll either run or they'll flush. So yes, the pointing dogs have the benefit in terms of, for a lot of species of birds, holding the bird, and you can get there, position yourself for a shot. As opposed to the flusher, you better be ready almost at all times, except you can tell by the body language of the dog, the sniffing, the wagging of the tail, that something's happening. So you can still prepare for a shot even with a flusher, only because of the activity of the dog increases substantially.
I got you. But by necessity, then, do you end up hunting closer, or hopefully your dogs are hunting closer to you with a flusher? Do you want to be closer to that dog while you're hunting than you might have to be with a setter? Or a pointer. You can let the nature of the beast, the pointing dogs, the German Shorthairs range a little bit further out. I want the flusher. Yes, that's a good point. The flushers I want to work closer to me. It doesn't help me for her to flush pheasants out of range. Yeah. But there is the excitement. Sometimes you have to have a little tickle with the shot collar saying, I want you to stay closer to me. Yep. But yeah, you do want a flusher primarily to work a little closer to you. And then you can, and it's also advantageous to you because you can see and hear the dog work. Gotcha. Which gives you the preparation for the shot. Well, listen, I wish you nothing but luck on this trip. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. But let's turn our attention now to something you and I love to talk about this time of year, and that's musky fishing in the fall, primarily on the inland lakes. Don, we hear so much in Michigan about musky fishing down on Lake St. Clair, and that's understandable. I mean, that is a world-class fishery, but we've got some great musky fishing on these inland lakes too, don't we? Yeah, we do. We unfortunately, the lakes I like to fish are all gone last year because, as you know, I live near Mid-State, and we lost all our lakes because of the dam loss on the Tittabawassee chain of lakes. But we do have some good inland lakes, especially in the northern part of the Mitten, and then there's a lot of good lakes in the western Upper Peninsula that I really like to fish in Iron County, eastern Gogebic County.
this time of year, of course, it's beautiful because you've got the lakes to yourself, you've got the fall colors, and it's inland fishing for muskies is a lot of fun. You don't have to contend with the wind on Lake St. Clair because it's a shallow lake. Lake St. Clair can whip up very fast, and you better have a good boat to take care of that. You don't want to be caught out in Lake St. Clair on a windy day if you don't have a good boat to get you back safely to the boat launch.
All right, talking more about Wixom, Sanford, and Secord that were known musky hotspots. Where did those fish go? Did they get flushed out of the system into the Saginaw River and Saginaw Bay, or is there still a big population of fish there? They're just confined in the river channel now.
Well, I hate to say this, but it's going to be a little bit of both. We were already, before the loss of the dams, we knew that we had movement downstream. I had caught fish personally below Sanford Dam, and in my work, we knew that we would catch muskies not only below Sanford Dam, we've caught them below Dow Dam, and as you know, people have caught them occasionally in Saginaw Bay. We had one muskie that was caught by the DNR, tagged. This was below the Sanford Dam when there was a lake, put back into Sanford Lake, and the next time that fish was seen was down by Quantica Sea. That was before we lost the dads. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, muskies are like that. They're lazy and they go downstream. We were already having fish loss over the dams. Are there still muskies in the river, which is now a river system? Yes, I have no doubt, because they don't know that Saginaw Bay is downriver. They don't know that. But have we lost? So it's a little bit of both. Some fish have trickled down. Some fish have trickled down. As long as they have good forage, they're still going to have good forage in the river systems where there were lakes. There's still excellent forage in there. So they're both. They're going to be scattered throughout the system. We had just started, before the loss of the dam, a marking program to see how much movement there was through the dams, how much survival there was. We had fin clipped a couple of thousand fish, and then the dams collapsed. And hopefully those fin clipped fish are still out there somewhere, but I'm not sure where they're at.
I kept expecting to hear reports of walleye anglers trolling on Saginaw Bay, hooking into muskies. I'm sure it happened, but not in the numbers that I ever heard about.
Well, no, we did not stock those lakes. As obviously, selfishly, as a musky angler, I'd like to have seen the fish stocking heavier. They had gone from a formula of stocking fall fingerlings of 4 fish per acre. They went down to 2 fish per acre. And I think that was in part to spread out what we consider a limited resource that we had throughout the state. Muskie stocking is always in very high demand. Everybody wanted them, but we only had so many every fall to stock. So would I have liked to see more fish stocked in those systems? Yes. But we stocked the minimum. So as opposed to, are there some in Saginaw Bay? I'm sure there are, but not the numbers that they're not common. There's a lot of water out there with very few muskies. Plus, there's a lot of muskies, like I say, still in the river system. So
does an inland muskie fishery need to be stocked or supported by the department to make it viable, or are there places in the state where it's complete natural reproduction?
Well, yes, there are lakes that depend on stocking, and then there are lakes that have a lot of natural reproduction. Our northern lakes, Burt, Black, and Mullet, have good populations of muskies that are self-sustaining for the most part. Same with those lakes I mentioned in Iron County. A lot of those lakes are self-sustaining. Some are supplemented with stocking. We have an agreement with Wisconsin that we can get fall fingerling muskies in what we call the northern strain of muskies to stock some of those lakes. And then Michigan, relying on harvesting muskie eggs from the Detroit River area in the spring. And that's where we get what we call our Great Lakes muskies for stocking inland lakes. So
So are the fish we? I'm sorry. So are the fish we see in inland lakes? Are they the same fish we'd see in Lake St. Clair, or are they two different strains?
There are some that you would see in Lake St. Clair. For example, this is the rule of thumb is if the body of water drains into the Great Lakes, they want to put Great Lakes muskies in it. So, for example, the impoundments on the Tittabawassee would be stocked with Great Lakes muskies. The inland lakes that do not have a Great Lakes outlet would be stocked with what we call northern muskies or Wisconsin muskies. So, yeah, you'll see some of the spotted / Great Lakes muskies, the same as what you would see in Lake St. Clair, you would see, for example, in Burt Black and Mullet, Skegamog, those lakes.
And if you hold these fish up side by side, is the difference obvious?
Well, it can, and most of the time, the Great Lakes muskies are spotted. The northern muskies, if they have any markings, are like a vertical barring. Sometimes there's very little marking. Sometimes you can't tell the difference between the two. And all of them look like they're spotted when they're young, like under 20 inches. They look spotted. Great, but those are not hard and fast rules of thumb.
Gotcha.
Those are just generalities.
Well, Don, I tell you what, we've shot the breeze so much that we've kind of used up our time. But what I want to do, if you're interested, now I realize you're making the trip to North Dakota and you got some miles ahead of you. If you can stick around, I want to offer you the coveted third segment, and we'll talk more about how to target these fall muskies. Do you have time? If not, I understand, but if you got time, you're welcome.
I got time.
I appreciate it. Don's got the time, and we've got the outlet right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio show, talking with Don Barnard about fall muskies now coming up after the break, how to target these fish. As Don said, you got the lakes to yourself, especially these inland lakes right now, right? You got the lake to yourself. The colors are beautiful. The water temps are dropping. If you're not going to be sitting in a ground blind or in a tree stand or chasing waterfowl or chasing, what else? Any fall turkeys, pheasants, whatever, why not grab the boat, grab the fishing rod, and head to one of these inland lakes and see if you can't hook into one of these fish. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll wrap up our conversation with Don Barnard. We'll let him finally get back on his way to North Dakota. And then after that, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. Coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. So I walked back into the studio here and realized I left the studio door open again, which made me think my mom would say, "Were you brought up in a barn?" Which actually, Charlie, in a lot of ways, I pretty much was now that I think about it. I spent enough time in that barn that I feel like I might have been brought up there. Oh, welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. So glad to have you along with us. You can hear the show in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. You can hear us in Newberry on WNBY 1450 AM, in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM, and in Saginaw, which is where I'm at right now as I record this week's show here in the studios of WSGW. During this time, of course, known as the Outdoor Magazine studio. You can hear us on WSGW 790 AM and 100.5 FM. As I'm here right now, there was a little bit of construction out here, so we didn't get crowds for a while, but now that the construction equipment is kind of cleaned out a little bit, as I look out the window, because it's not raining right now, they're starting to line up, and some of them are actually carrying signs. Charlie, I want you to look out here, Charlie. They're carrying, yep, he saw them. They're carrying signs saying, "God bless you, Charlie Rude." And God is going to strike me down for lying like that, too. Charlie, I appreciate everything you do for the show. Thank you. I also appreciate the fact that my friend Don Barnard, who is trying to work his way to North Dakota to go pheasant hunting, and I keep slowing him down with his phone call for this radio show. Don, I appreciate your time. I wish you nothing but best on this trip. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I'm leisurely taking my time out to North Dakota. I just have to cross Minnesota today and get into North Dakota, and then as long as we're where we're trying to get to by tomorrow night, I'll be happy. So I got time to spare. So that's why we're sitting at a gas station outside of Duluth, Minnesota.
So are you giving me a preview of what retirement looks like? Is that what you're trying to rub it in?
Well, there are days in my retirement I was thinking I was never this busy when I was working. So I can't guarantee what's going to happen to you, but yeah, there are times will be a vacation where I don't have to worry about writing a sermon for the church or doing this, that, and the other thing for around the house. I can just go out here and relax, enjoy the creation out here in North Dakota, and hopefully get a pheasant or two to bring back for my wild game dinner.
Hopefully so. Good luck. Enjoy that. So listen, let's talk about, in the few minutes we have left after shooting the breeze on so many other topics, these fall muskies. Now, I know fish in general tend to become more aggressive as the water temp drops. They got to put on the feed bag. They're getting ready for wintertime. So how do we as anglers take advantage of that? Where do you find these fish, Don?
Well, the best place, first off, I went fishing the other night, and the water temperature was 67 degrees, which is a lot warmer than I had hoped. 55 and below is the magic number for fall muskies. So that's a start. And then, you got to do your research where there's muskies. Look at the websites of the DNR where they've been stocked and stuff like that. In terms of the habitat, I start with summer locations like weed edges and that sort of thing. As the fall progresses, I work my way deeper. I'll use deeper diving crankbaits. For some reason, the fish tend to go off the drop-offs to a little deeper water as we get closer to winter, and that's what I'll be targeting. I'll be targeting as water temperature, let's say 55 degrees, the magic number, work our way deeper as the water temperature drops.
Trolling or anchored up and casting, or moving around with your bow mount and casting?
Well, that's what I prefer. I prefer to cast. Trolling is an excellent way. It obviously helps you find fish, I should say, and you can cover a lot of water trolling. As opposed to casting, I can probe inlets and drop-offs a little bit better and a little bit slower. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. The advantage to casting is it's more of a one-on-one with the fish. I get to see the strike or feel the strike, more of a chance to do figure eights boat side. So that's what I enjoy. It's just what do you enjoy, bow hunting deer with a recurve or bow hunting deer with a crossbow? Both are enjoyable. All of the enjoyable, all are great. And you can get a picture with a fish, that's wonderful.
Well, musky fishermen are the one breed of people that get almost as much thrill out of seeing a fish as catching a fish. Well,
the thing is, as you know, there's not going to be a lot of numbers of fish in a lake of muskies. At the peak, we had an inland lake that probably had 2 fish per acre. It was one of our broodstock lakes. I don't think the numbers are that high anymore in that lake. That was Lake Hudson, south of Jackson. It probably had 2 fish per acre. Well, that's still, most of the lakes are lucky to have half a fish per acre. So in the inland lake, you may be looking for 60, 70 fish at most. And location is everything. If you can see a fish one day and come back 15, 20 minutes later, you have a chance of catching it. Location is a big factor in just catching muskies.
Don, always a pleasure. Have fun on your trip. Drive safe, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Mike. I enjoyed being with you.
Always a pleasure.
Afternoon.
You as well. Don Barnard on his way to North Dakota. I said South Dakota earlier. North Dakota. A beautiful part of our world, of our country. If you want to see some land and some country and some territory and not a lot of people, head to the Dakotas and make a drive there. It's beautiful, it's desolate, and there's a lot of critters. And I wish Don and his wife, Vicki, a wonderful trip. We'll take a break. When we come back, wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner right here on Outdoor Magazine. thank you so much for joining me on this week's Outdoor Magazine show. I do certainly appreciate it. I would ask you to stay in touch during the week. Join me online on the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, the different social media outlets. If you want to get in touch with me, you can always do that. I would encourage it, in fact. Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And don't forget about the big Wednesday night live coming up Wednesday night, the 20th. Actually, this next Wednesday night coming up, we will be live from the Rapid River Knife Works showroom in Rapid River in the UP. The showroom will be open. We're going to give away a couple of knives. We're going to give away one online. You need to like the Rapid River Facebook page, like the Michigan Brand Meats page because they're giving the knife away, or one of the knives. Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand will be there with me. And then comment on the post that you'll find on my Facebook page, Rapid River or Michigan Brands, about the giveaway. Comment there, and you'll be registered to win a knife. A Rapid River knife, a beautiful Rapid River knife. In fact, you could use that knife to help process some wild game. And that was my transition into wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner, who's with us now on the phone line. David, welcome back. How are you?
Very well, Mike. And yourself?
I'm doing great. I mean, it's October. What could possibly be wrong in the world in October, right?
Oh, my goodness. The colors have been just gorgeous so far.
Have you been out hunting at all, Dave? Had a chance?
No, when we're recording this, no. But I'm getting ready to. So.
Well, good deal. Good luck to you.
You too.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, again, as we're doing some time shifting here, I'm just coming back from a hunt in Ohio, but we're getting ready to open pheasant season here in Michigan, which makes me think, I'll bet you've got a pheasant recipe.
You are absolutely correct. Man, I don't know. I grew up in the 60s, and they used to close Clio schools opening day of pheasant if it fell during the week.
Yeah.
It was quite the, everybody from Detroit would come up, all the relatives, and it was quite the, grandma would put on a heck of a feast. It was just great. But, well, I've got a pheasant breast with raspberries, a razzmatazz pheasant. You're going to need 1 or 2 breasts per person, and you could get maybe about a pint of fresh raspberries, or frozen if you like. You could use 1 to 2 cups of fresh mushrooms. Now, the fall woodland mushrooms would just be outrageous with this. The shaggies or the chanterelles or the hens, any of them, if you could get them, or you had some morels in the freezer or dried up, unbelievable. You need about 3/4 of a jar of chicken gravy, 2 to 3 ounces of heavy cream, a couple of 2-3 ounces of razzmatazz schnapps. You can buy that in a pint, so you wouldn't have to have the whole big bottle. About 3 or 4 tablespoons of diced onions, flour, olive oil, and as I say, we got to have raspberries. So you're going to slice. Well, you could either slice it or probably not. I would say just to pound it out, the breast between saran wrap, and then look and see if there's any bloodied meat, trim that away, or any shot left in it, and then put it between plastic wrap and pound it down. Then you could dredge the meat in flour and saute for just enough to break the flavor loose on both sides, caramelize it. Take that out. Add your onions and simmer that for just a little while, kind of break that flavor loose. And then you could add pretty much everything else, the heavy cream, the chicken gravy, the mushrooms, all of that. Get it back in the pan, get it really nice, fast boil, put the meat back in it. The meat, is going to cook relatively fast, probably within, 8 to 10 minutes. If you wanted to put everything together in a casserole and bake it for that 8 or 10 minutes would be just great. Now, what you're going to do is use only half of the raspberries in the beginning, and then you're going to save half of it to add at the very end because the raspberries are going to cook down and incorporate into the sauce. Now, just before you serve this, you want to put the rest of the raspberries in and just bring it up to a boil, and it's ready. So if you had this, 8 to 10 minutes in the oven at 350 degrees, that would be the time, the last 2 or 3 minutes, just to warm them up. Now, if you wanted to, if you had any fiddlehead ferns in the freezer, so much the better, but this would go great with wild rice and asparagus or fiddleheads, or a real nice, maybe the whole string beans would really complement the eye appeal of this on the plate between all the colors. It's a wonderful pheasant.
It sounds wonderful, and you've always talked about you've got to appeal to the eye of the diner before you can appeal to the taste buds, and you're a master at that. Before I let you go, though, Dave, I got to ask you, how are things going at Oscar and Joey's? I mean, for restaurants in general, it's been a rough time. How are you guys doing?
We're open Thursday through Sunday in the evenings until we can find some more help. Right now, that's all we can work, the people that came back to work for us. Just Thursday through Sunday, call for a reservation. Sometimes we've been busy, and most of the time it's been pretty darn good business, and I thank everybody for supporting us.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, everybody I know in the service industries right now, they just can't find people.
I don't mind to get into politics, but it sure never, ever would have thought our life would have came to this, to have a help shortage, computer chip shortage, food. You go to Gordon's or Sam's or in a grocery store and look at the empty aisles. What is it? It's just pathetic.
That's why we need to get outdoors and catch some fish and shoot some game and fill our freezers that way. And Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dave Miner always has a great way to cook them up. Thanks for joining me on this edition of the Outdoor Magazine Show. I will look forward to talking next time. Listen, when I get back, next week we'll talk about how that Ohio went and Ohio hunt went and so much more right here on Outdoor Magazine.